You've got shit. I've got shit. We've all got shit. So let's therapize that shit with your host, me, Joy Gerhard. Please note, I am not a therapist. I cannot and do not diagnose anyone or prescribe anything. This is just me, someone who struggles with mental illness, emotions, and intrusive thoughts, sharing what skills I've used and how I've used them. Also, trigger warning, in this podcast, I talk about sensitive topics including mental illness, suicidal ideation, self-harm, rape, childhood sexual assault, trauma, and more. I also swear here and there, so listener discretion is advised. If you're new to the podcast, some context for you. I've gotten a ton of value out of doing group therapy and watching others process their shit. In group, I can see other people's patterns and behaviors much more clearly because they aren't my patterns and behaviors, but rather they're adjacent to mine. It's such a relief, wherein I practice skills while actually in the thick of shit. Each episode, I typically do an introduction and provide some context. Then I play a recording of me actively dealing with shit. This isn't me talking about psychology or theories. I'm actually in distress, having strong emotions and strong urges, numb. But my intention is always to move through an emotion, never to stay there. So stick with me, and we'll actually come out on the other side by the end of the episode. Alrighty, let's hop to it. Welcome. This episode 47, which was talking about the ending of a multi-year-long friendship and practicing some non-judgment around that. So you'll want to listen to that one first because it has all of the context for this conversation. A brief summary about what we covered in episode 47. So my sister Anne came on the podcast specifically to have judgments so that we could talk about how to turn judgment language into non-judgment language. And the field of battle, as it were, the arena for this practice was a very close friendship of her. The arena for this practice was a very close friendship of hers that ended, and the judgments that she had around that former friend of hers. In episode 47, the previous episode, she provided a ton of detail about how that friendship ended, things her former friend said and did at the end, so we're not going to get into that. A ton in this episode. Suffice it to say, her friend expressed that she no longer felt that she had anything in common with Anne after Anne developed a chronic health condition that significantly diminished her capacity to be active out in the world. And we kind of wrapped up the non-judgment portion in episode 47, but as I was listening back to the entire conversation that she and I had, I realized there was a lot of really good shit that we discussed of having invisible disabilities. And we both practiced the skill of validation quite a bit. So I thought I would share the rest of the conversation with you here and go over that validation skill. Some brief orientation. Most of the skills that I reference on this podcast are from the DBT manual by Marsha Linehan. DBT manual is linked in the description, both in PDF form and where you can buy a hard copy. And whenever I'm quoting the manual or really anyone else's work other than my own, I turn on a little bit of reverb so that I sound like I'm in a basketball stadium, or more accurately, a basketball stadium bathroom. I will be referencing handouts from several of the DBT modules in this episode. There are 4 modules: mindfulness, interpersonal effectiveness, emotion regulation, and distress tolerance. So when I mention a handout that I'm reading from, emotion regulation and distress tolerance. So when I mention a handout that I'm reading from, I'll say something like, this is from Mindfulness Handout 8, or whatever, so that you can follow along on your own. Also, there is a new edition of the DBT manual for the last, I think, 10 years. It's been the second of the DBT manual for the last, I think 10 years, it's been the second edition, and now there is a revised edition. And so the page numbers are different between the second edition and the revised edition. I've never used page numbers when I tell you where I'm reading. I only ever used worksheet or handout numbers, and those stay the same in both versions. But it does mean that if you go to look at the digital copy that I've provided a link to in the description, that's going to be the second edition, not the revised edition. Okay, so you'll have to say about validation. One of the things I appreciate about the DBT manual is that it actually explains both the why and the how of validation, why we do it and how we do it. One of the things I hate about the DBT manual is that it explains what validation is in a way that I find confusing. And the second part of this conversation with my sister is because I was trying to put together a graphic that shows what validation is and what it is not. And I couldn't crack it. I actually crashed out fucking hard. I'm in a partial hospitalization program right now where I'm going and doing DBT 8 hours a day. And I have put in so many coaching requests and talked to so many people, including the clinical director who came in the middle of class to have this conversation with me because I was crashing out about the definition of validation that is in the DBT manual. It took me dozens of hours to finally nail down what I think the book and putting that into a graphic. So I've linked to the graphic in the description. And nope, don't do it, Joy. I'm not going to go into the weeds right here and now about what is frustrating to me. I'm just going to give you a very short summary of what I didn't like about it. The book defines validation caused. It also defines validation as verifying the facts of the situation, which is also how it defines if something is justified. So the definition of a justified thing is in alignment with the facts of the situation, and the definition of validation is verifying the facts of the situation. The manual, and I agree with this, says that everything is caused, but not everything fits the facts. The problem is, it provides a definition of valid that says that things are caused, and it provides a definition of valid that says it fits the facts. So ultimately, the book is saying everything is valid, but not everything. So ultimately, the book is saying everything is valid, but not everything is valid. Everything is caused, i.e. valid, but not everything fits the facts, i.e. valid. So how can everything be valid and not everything be valid? Anyway, ultimately, how I made this make sense for myself is to only use validation to mean acknowledging that something is caused. When I want to refer to whether something fits the facts, I use the term justified. So we don't want to say something fits the facts if it doesn't fit the facts. We don't want to say something is justified. If you care about the weeds of this, I do have a graphic, like the definition of these terms, explaining why these terms confuse me. I've linked it in the description. I will not spend any more time going over this because I've already spent 2 weeks just tearing out my hair about it. Okay, so let's talk about validation. Validation or personal effectiveness section. So interpersonal effectiveness handout 17, validation. Validation means finding the kernel of truth in another person's perspective or situation, verifying the facts of a situation, acknowledging that a person's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors have causes and are therefore unnecessarily agreeing with the other person, not validating what is actually invalid. Why validate? It improves our relationships by showing we are listening and understand. It improves interpersonal effectiveness by reducing pressure to prove who is right, negative reactivity, and anger. It makes problem solving. Why validate? Because invalidation hurts. Important things to validate are the valid and only the valid, the facts of a situation, a person's experiences, feelings, emotions, beliefs, opinions, or thoughts about something, suffering, and difficulties. Remember, some way. Okay, Joy, hold, just keep it. I would rewrite this as every unjustified response or behavior makes sense in some way, or every ineffective response or behavior makes sense in some way and is therefore valid. response or behavior makes sense in some way and is therefore valid. So it can be valid, but unjustified and ineffective. Validation is not necessarily agreeing. Validation doesn't mean you like it. Only validate the valid. Okay, I'm trying to let go of judgments here because this really bothers me. Turning now to Interpersonal Effectiveness Handout 18, a how-to guide to validation. There are 6 steps, which are: number 1, pay attention. Number 2, reflect back. Number 3, read minds. Yes, I think it's better to say read body language and nonverbal cues, or interpret, and then to always phrase it as a question and check the accuracy. Number 4, understand. Number 5, acknowledge the valid. And number 6, show equality. So each of these include. Number 1, pay attention. Look interested, listen, and observe. No multitasking. Make eye contact. Stay focused. Nod occasionally. Respond with your face. Example, smile at happy statements. Look concerned when hearing something painful. And this is something like we use the observe skill and sensory awareness to notice the facts of the situation. Step 2, reflect back. Say back what you heard or observed to be sure you actually understand what the person is saying. No judgmental language or voice tone. Try to really have an open mind. No disagreeing, criticizing, or trying to change the other person's mind or goals. Use a voice tone that allows the other person to correct you and check the facts. And examples of this would be like providing a summary or repetition. If I'm reflecting back for someone else, I use the describe skill to do that. And if I'm reflecting back for myself, I frequently will use journaling or my diary card or a voice note to kind of reflect back my own experience. Step 3, read minds. Be sensitive to what is not being said by the other person. Pay attention to facial expression. Step 3, read minds. Be sensitive to what is not being said by the other person. Pay attention to facial expressions, body language, what is happening, and what you know about the person already. Show that you understand in words or by your actions. Be open to correction. And again, I don't like that language. So read body language and nonverbal cues, or interpret/assume. And make sure, of course, you phrase it as a question, check the accuracy of it. Typically, to do this part, I would use the participate skill. Step 4, understand. Look for how the other person feels, is thinking. He or she is making sense, given the person's history, state of mind or body, or current events, i.e. the causes. Even if you don't approve of the person's behavior or if his or her belief is incorrect. Say, it makes sense that you ... because ... which is basically asking, why does it make sense for the experience? And I get in trouble because I frequently will use my understanding of the other person to invalidate myself. So I really have to intentionally do self-validation and practice self-respect while doing this step. Also, I acknowledge the book uses he or she pronouns instead of just using they, which would be way more effective. Step 5, acknowledge the valid. Show that you see that the person's thoughts, feelings, or actions are valid, given current reality and facts. Act as if the person's behavior is valid. And finally, step 6, show equality. Run down the other person. Treat the other as an equal, not as fragile or incompetent. You're going to hear me use these different levels to validate my sister in the recording that I'm about to play for you. She also uses quite a bit of these levels to validate herself, which is fucking fantastic. One thing I do is that I intentionally label her thoughts, conclusions, and judgments as those things. And I validate that she's having those thoughts and assumptions, conclusions, and judgments. It makes sense that she's having them. They're caused and come from somewhere. I do not say that her thoughts, assumptions, conclusions, or judgments are factually correct, which is the definition of justified. So you're going to hear me make those distinctions. Before I forget, I do want to mention a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. Anne and Ruth, you are exemplary four-horn pilot fish. and our 97 four-horn pilotfish, and are 97.9% of the reason that this podcast exists for public consumption. So thank you so, so much. And if you, dear listener, would like to support this podcast, the link to my Patreon is in the description. All right, let's get into the second part of the conversation with my sister, Anne. Let's get into the second part of the conversation with my sister, Anne. Our original conversation took place on September 21st, and I'm recording this commentary on October 18th. So there's about, almost a month difference. Okay, here we go. You're in this shitty position of having to accept that you don't know. Like the actual reason. You only know what she's told you and how she's behaved.
Exactly. Which is just like an added layer of shit on top of losing this tried and true friendship.
Yeah.
Of like, I really don't have a good sense of what happened. Like, I can't know for sure, as you say.
And it makes it hard for, like, because you're a thoughtful human, you want to know, like, hey, did I fuck up somewhere? Is there something I can rectify? And even if this relationship is beyond saving, is there something I should put into place moving forward in future relationships?
100%.
You don't have the ability to do that, really, because there's so much you don't know.
Yeah, because I don't have a great sense of where, if anywhere.
Yeah, and the reason that she gave you was that she sees the areas where you are incompatible now, like the areas where you've diverged, like in terms of going out and being out in the world and being quote unquote involved, however she defined. And if that is in fact her kind of litmus test or her criteria for who she will be friends with, you cannot do that anime. You physically do not have the capacity for it anymore. And she does not accept that about you, or has not communicated that she accepts that about you.
Yeah.
And part of me kind of just wants to be like, you're better off without her.
I mean, you're not the first person to have communicated. You're not the first person to have said that. And there's a part of me that feels that way.
Because, like, we know what it's like to be in relationship with people who are ableist. Yeah. And what a constant fucking fight it is to have to explain. It feels like we have to apologize.
And convince.
Yes. And basically become, like, a medical professional educating the other person, and we're not taken at face value. There's judgments about, your lesser capacity means something about you morally or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons that this has lingered somatically for so long. First of all, the longevity of the span of the relationship was so long that she's been a part of my life for forever, and so it's very weird for her to not be. But also the fact, like, we were probably connecting once a month on Zoom and like having meaningful, heartfelt conversations in which I was sharing like what was going on in my health journey. And like it was maybe 2 or 3, like, hey, I think I'm autistic. And I was like, wow, really? Like, that's, tell me more. And like, what's your experience been like? And like, are there any books that I can read to like help me understand more about? So that was kind of my understanding of her capacity and willingness and openness, I guess, to hold me holistically as a friend. And then we met for like 1 or 2 more months, and then she disappeared and came back with these comments. And I hard to say how much like was the autistic piece something that like broke the camel's back. I don't think so. That's not the sense I have, but it was very jarring to go from like, oh, here's my friend holding this like thing with me and being so open and like willing to learn more about it, to, hey, you're way too much. I'm going to show you how ableist I am. And it felt like it felt like this extreme about face that was really shocking, I think.
Yeah, like the pendulum swing from what appeared to be acceptance to total rejection in what we consider to be the same domain of disability. And I can only have the same domain of disability. And I can only hypothesize that, like, one of the weird, I mean, like, you were autistic even before you knew you were autistic. You were autistic before she knew you were autistic. But, like, the diagnosis doesn't change who you are. Or even whereas with your chronic illnesses, those do actually change your behavior. And so I suspect, like, how she was processing, and again, this is total just supposition, and hypothesis, that like, functionally knowing you're autistic but having your chronic illnesses dramatically change your capacity did change something.
Yeah.
And who's to say why it was that she focused on that divergence between the two of you rather than on all the ways that you guys are still compatible?
Yeah.
It fucking sucks. It fucking sucks with a bunch of unknowns and a bunch of things that don't make sense to you, that you don't have a way of making sense of. And then, you know, the grief of not just of losing the friendship, but also that she didn't turn out to be the person you thought she was. Like, it would be different if she, you know, died. Like, that would be a different time. It would be able to spend time with this person anymore. But there's also, like, the transformation of how she lives in your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it sucks to have one view of someone and then have their behavior undermine that view of them.
Yeah, and it really has. I'm continuing to experience long-term effects from this friendship breakup because now I have this underlying doubt of people. Because I'm like, okay, here's this person that I've known for 20 years and been really good friends with, and they overnight can have this about face change of heart and personality, it seems. So, like, now I'm kind of giving the side eye to my spouse and, like, other good friends, where I'm just like, there's this underlying simmering doubt of, like, could you just overnight leave?
Yeah. Yeah. There's, I mean, and I've talked about, let me try that again. I've talked about this on the podcast before about what has trauma or what has PTSD persist, and, you know, that it's, or what has PTSD persist, and, you know, that it's avoidance and harmful beliefs or problematic beliefs. And how, for me, with my experience of trauma, it's the, like, I don't know who's safe. I can't tell who's safe. And it chips away at your trust, your ability to count on other people.
And it's constant vigilance too. So your body's, like, perpetually in a state of stress.
Yep. How do you feel about me comparing your situation to my sexual assaults? Does that feel bad or gross to you?
No, but drawing parallels. So I'm curious to hear what you think.
Okay. Well, with the folks who have sexually assaulted me, almost all of them beforehand, not just, like, the second beforehand, but, like, as I knew them in the before times, would make assertions about, hey, I want to be a safe person, or sexually unless you've explicitly given me permission, those sorts of statements.
Paid lip service to it.
And I don't know if they honestly believed that when they said it, if they meant it at the time and then, like, changed their mind later, or if they don't actually see what they did later as they didn't see that they thought, oh, these are not in conflict with each other at all. Who's to say? But I'm sure that with your friend, that, like, because you guys knew each other for so long, she would say things about being reliable, about the future, that you, like, how you guys wanted to, how you guys wanted to continue your friendship into the future. And when somebody says things like that, and then they, what do you call this? They sever their relationship, they break your trust or what have you. around the thing they said.
Yeah.
Around the thing they said.
Yeah.
Then it causes you, like when you say you're side-eyeing your spouse, like if somebody can make promises or like and express a commitment and then bail on that, somebody that you trust, somebody who has that long, who else can do that? And I think that's a justified concern. I don't even think it's unjustified. I mean, it's absolutely valid. Of course, like I see how the dominoes fell to get us there. But also, when someone you trust who has a track record with you breaks your trust, now you know that that's a thing that can happen.
Yeah. Yep. And it can happen with relationships where there's been, like you said, a long track record of both verbal and active, like action,
like behavioral
things that would indicate that they're safe.
Yeah.
So behavioral things that would indicate that they're safe.
Yeah.
So no red flags kind of thing for years. And then suddenly poof.
Blammo. Yeah. And that's a hard thing to sit with. Like that is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's some fucking next level acceptance can happen in any relationship in my life at any time, and holding them with that knowledge.
Yeah.
While not living in a perpetual state of stress.
Right. Yeah. Because like there's all sorts of circumstances out in the world where like we have to trust other people. Like, you know, I'm trusting that they'll take me to the hospital and not to like, you know, dump me off a pier or something. You give a cashier money and you trust that they will give you your change. You know, give you your change. You know, you're at a stopwalk or a stoplight and it says to cross. You're trusting that the drivers sitting there at their red light are not going to gun the engine and run you over. We have to be able to trust other people. And even with like the best levels of discernment, like the best levels of discernment and like looking for red flags and all of that, we can still get absolutely fucking flattened by people who gave us no indication that they were going to do this.
Yeah.
I think like our only recourse then, and I hate it. Recourse then is to focus on resilience in the face of when something like that happens, rather than putting, I mean, there's some energy into, you know, just checking in and shit. But I think it makes more sense to put most of our energy into healing from shit than trying to avoid shit altogether.
Yeah. And I think that's another piece of this that feels so like, what? Is that this friend and I have had many like knockdown, drag out fights before. And we've always, you know, managed to talk it out, sometimes very messily. But like we've had things that I would have expected to break most friendships happen in the past, and we've repaired it. So I'm also a little bit like, really? This wasn't broken? I don't understand. Okay.
Well, and it's accepting that it really doesn't have anything to do with you. And like your friend's behavior clearly, because of all of this history that you just described, the ability to resolve conflict, her showing up for you around like your autism, but not this, like, I honestly anything to do with you, I think.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of those things that now with 2.5 years of distance between the breakup.
Yeah, the divorce.
Yeah. That I feel like only just now that door is starting to crack open. Of like, maybe I can acknowledge and see a little bit how it might not have anything to do with me. But I mean, it's taken 2.5 years for that to even feel like a possibility.
Well, and even if we can like find a middle ground of maybe some part of it had to do with you, but there was also some part of it that had to do with her, and we don't actually. It's all about her.
I am angelic and did nothing wrong.
Of course not. Never. Because you're exactly right. Always and forever. Never. Because you're exactly right. Always and forever. Some portion of it has to do with you. Some portion of it has to do with her. And we cannot know the relative proportions of those two things.
I hate that.
You hate that?
I do.
Yeah.
I hate not knowing what I'm.
I've been sitting a lot lately with the degree to which our brains crave certainty.
Mm-hmm. And control.
Yes. And I think those two things are like, they're like buddies. They're holding hands.
Yeah.
And like if I doctors at, in the ER and stuff, like if they said, hey, tomorrow we're gonna, shoot you in the face, that would feel better than if they slapped me across the face today at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing a painful thing is something that's not even as painful,
Mm-hmm.
I think speaks to the degree to which uncertainty is painful for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well put.
Thank you. I'm very wise, as you know.
It's true.
Yeah, that one of the docs I was seeing said something to the effect of people with chronic pain, like they would rather off a finger.
Oh.
But they're like, I know what's causing this pain. They're not in distress about their pain.
Uh-huh.
Whereas folks who have pain they don't know the cause of,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing the source causes a huge amount of distress, which adds to, of course, the level of pain.
Yeah.
I mean, we know this already, that suffering is pain without acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And we make ourselves suffer by not accepting painful shit. And that pisses me off. I don't like that.
Yeah, it feels like a cruel setup.
I know. Yes, I like that.
Yeah, it feels like a cruel setup.
I know. Yes. It's like, hey, here's a thing you're already predisposed not to be good at, acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make you not being good at that cause even... it's like, hey, here's a thing you're already predisposed not to be good at, acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make you not being good at that cause even more higher levels of pain.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Not a fan. I say
Damn it.
Uh-huh. Yep. That fucking thing. So could you said this happened 2.5 years ago. Do you have a sense of, like, if looking back over the last 2.5 years, kind of your process of what was the first thing you managed to accept? And then the kind of like what has become the progressively, like, what's your progression of what you've accepted over time?
Great question. Well, definitely want to acknowledge the fact that I have not reached like acceptance, and what I accept from day to day is always changing. And some days when I have fewer spoons, this relationship ended.
Sure.
That being said, though, I think probably the first thing that kind of sunk in as real was that the friendship was over. Whether or not I wanted it to be, that I would probably never interact with this person again.
Yeah.
Yeah, was a bit sucked. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, like it's been very recent that like there's been little tiny glimmers of acceptance around it. Some of it, at least, not having anything to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing that her context is a big influence in what happened, if not sole influence. I don't know.
And it's unknown to you.
And it's unknown to me. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there have been baby steps along the way around accepting the fact that I cannot know. And I think that's one where I grew a lot of internal. Yeah, and I think there have been baby steps along the way around accepting the fact that I cannot know. And I think that's one where I grew a lot of internal fits that, like, I really struggled with denial and anger about that. Of like, I have to know, I need to know, I'm not going to be able, I really struggled with denial and anger about that. Of like, I have to know, I need to know, I'm not going to be able to heal unless I know.
Yeah.
So that's also kind of settled in. And it's the passage of time is helpful in that too, because just the more time that passes without contact, I don't know today, probably not going to know tomorrow.
Right. Like you continue to not know.
Mm-hmm.
And with the passage of time, actually, like the things you don't know become more. Like you don't know what's going on with her life.
Yeah. I heard she got married.
What?
Yep.
How did that feel?
Shitty. Super shitty.
Yeah. Fuck,
Yeah.
man.
I'd met her fiance at the time. He was not her fiance. And he was lovely. Like, I really liked him.
God damn it.
Very happy for them.
What a mixed bag of yeah.
But yeah, to your point, yeah, there's just more time that passes, the less I know.
Yeah. It fucking sucks.
As an aside, the only reason I realized that she got married was because me.
Yes.
Which, like, I knew in the moment too. I was like, "Don't do it, Anne. Don't do it. You're gonna regret it." And here I am, a year and a half later, being like, "I regret it."
Yeah.
Seems like she's doing very well, which is exactly what Instagram is
built for. Yeah.
But anyway, word in relationships too, of just like anyone can do this if they want to me. And then choosing to still invest in relationships, even when I know they could tank like this. But I will say I move much more tentatively now.
Sure. Well, and especially because you also have these other very close relationships that also have crashed.
Yeah.
And so it's not like this is the only instance.
No. In fact, there are a number of relationships that have crashed from college on.
Yeah.
Which then has me, that demotivational pitch on.
Yeah.
Which then has me, that demotivational poster that's like, the common link in all your failed relationships is you.
Yes. Yeah, like, because you have tremendous willingness to examine your part of these things. But when people just like cut you off without communicating, it leaves you just being like, hey, I'd be willing to fix something if you would tell me what to fucking fix.
Yes, that's exactly it. And I don't mean to paint myself as any sort of saint, because Lord knows I am just so fucking human. But that is one thing I will toot my own horn about, is that since I was little, I've always been very keen to repair. Like, yeah. I stomp on people for sure. I fuck up. I put my foot in it. I like hurt people left and right, not intentionally, or like, you know what I mean? Like not with the design to hurt them, but I fucked that up. Like, let's fix it. How can we heal it? And so, yeah, to have these series of significant relationships in my life crash and burn without the opportunity to repair or heal anything really sucks.
Yeah, because like it's one of your ultimate values, like very top at close to the top of the list for you. And it does not appear to be as close to the top for these folks.
They have not demonstrated
that repair is one of their priorities. Look at you. Look at you. Well done. Very well done.
I can be taught.
You can. I'm so proud. And similar to like my former partner, who still to this day will talk about like how I ruined conflict resolution for him because I was so good at it, is frustrated by their lack of skill around. And I'm like, I carried you, motherfucker. I was the one doing all the goddamn work. Of course you enjoyed it. Of course I ruined it for you. I like held your hand through it.
Mm-hmm.
And it allowed him to think, oh yeah, we're good at this together. I'm like, no, we are not. I'm good at this.
Right. It's like him saying that, like, you ruined hiking for me because now if I go on hikes, I have to walk.
Yes. I have to carry my own things.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Yep, buddy, you do. And so it appears to me that these folks, they didn't demonstrate that conflict resolution was as top of a priority, or maybe they don't even have the skill for it. I think for a lot of folks who don't know how to have hard conversations and have access to is ending a relationship.
That's fair. If that's the only, what is the phrase? If every something hammer nail.
Yes. If all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail.
There it is.
Yeah, I think if you don't know how to repair a relationship, all you have.
It's worth repeating.
And you're left there going, hey, I've got a hammer and I've got a screwdriver and I've got a drill and I've got a power saw. I've got all of these things. Let's use all of these things. And they're like, yeah, but all I've got is a hammer, so I'm piecing out.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like, yeah, exactly what you're just
out.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like, yeah, exactly what you're describing with your ex-partner.
Yeah. The work I've been working on, like the silver lining I'm trying to brainwash myself into seeing is that what it does is it filters out in my life. It selects for the people who can do that.
Yeah, but
at what cost?
At what cost?
I know. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you're totally right. I think at least has been that, like, the relationship gets to a point where that comes to a head of like the disparity in how we're relating to one another, and it cracks in two.
I have an analogy. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how, like, if a 6-year-old toddles onto the field during the World Series and says, "Hey, I can pitch the next inning," like, he has to be escorted off the field. He cannot be allowed to play. Like, he could die, actually, with the speed of the balls that are moving around. Like, he could die. So he's not allowed to play, and like he could die. So he's not allowed to play. And he can sit there and be like, but I really want to. And I look at me, I play peewee, wiffle ball or whatever and stuff, and insist that he knows how to play. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't actually understand his own skill level.
Unconscious incompetence.
Of the competency tiers. Yeah. So we know the pool of people who play like Little League is fucking huge. Tons of kids play Little League. Millions and millions of kids play Little League. And then we get up to like high school. And, you've got freshmen. What is it? Freshman?
Or C team sometimes is what
the lowest is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as we move up through the skill levels and advance in knowledge, the pool becomes smaller and smaller. Now, you've got varsity players who can go throw a ball around with their younger sibling who's still in like peewee, cannot play varsity. And then we get even smaller. We get into college and the pool gets smaller, and we get into, is it AAA then AA? Or is it the other way around?
Oh, in college rankings? Mm-hmm.
Or like after college, like we get farm teams, there's like
a minor league.
Yes. Yep. And then we move up into, the major leagues. And even within the major leagues, we know that there's a significant difference between like the Yankees and the Oakland A's.
Which we can say because that was our home team for a while. Yeah.
And at each level, you've got kids. And at each level, you've got kids who are like, but I've been playing for the last 10 years. I put in all this time and effort thinking that they would be able to make it to college ball, minor leagues, major leagues, however it goes. And one of the things I've been wrestling with ever after is ever after, that it must have permanence to be of value. None of the fairy tales end with, and they were really happy for 5 years. And then they decided to go their separate ways because they wanted different things out of life. But yes, like we have this kind of mentality, like the sunk cost fallacy. Verse is if we've put in this much effort, it needs to last. Mm-hmm. And that if it doesn't, we are a failure in some way. And I've been trying to kind of brainwash myself into, like, my former partner. We were together for 2 years. A year and a half, former partner. We were together for 2 years. A year and a half of it was in the pandemic. what if our relationship was so that he was not living alone and I was not living with my parents during the quarantine? What if that was, it's like the gift of it?
Mm.
And in that case, what a gift for both of us. Like, he talked about how depressed he was. Because he went from traveling constantly to being benched and not being able to travel because of the pandemic. So we were a gift to each other in a lot of ways.
How long did it take after accept that?
So it's been almost exactly 4 years. Probably 3 years, maybe 2. And I think I probably had the thought fairly early on of like, well, at least we had that, you know, but it wasn't like it was kind of a more of an intellectual knowing rather than like a embodied knowing.
Totally. Where it was actually soothing to your nervous system to recognize the gift of it.
Yeah. Now it feels less of a, when God closes the door, he opens a window, and more of a like, door, he opens a window, and more of a like, oh, that's actually something I'm like legitimately grateful for.
Yeah. Your found silver lining.
Yeah. And so I'm also trying to like practice seeing just relationships in general in that way, that like, that they ebb and flow. You know, you think, hey, this is going to be my lifelong friend. And it's disappointing to discover that you grew apart, or they managed to hide their assholeness from you for 20 years and then brought it out at the least opportune moment. But yeah, it's I think we aim for permanence because it's our brain's way of avoiding sitting with the discomfort of not being in control and not having certainty.
Mm-hmm.
And aiming for permanence probably makes the acceptance of uncertainty that much harder.
Yeah.
Like, if I've just been experimenting as like a mental exercise for myself, like if I married someone and held that with, this is a good fit for us right now. This is a dynamic that works for us right now. And for those who can't see, I'm kind of like, what am I doing? Swaying, like flowing back and forth.
Yeah, it feels like a very like you're drifting with the current.
That there still is room for, hey, this is the life we're gonna build for ourselves. And there's still room for, if that life no longer works and we diverge, that's a thing that can happen, and I can feel sad and grieve it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've been batting that idea around of. I don't know. I've been batting that idea around of.
Yeah, that's like next level acceptance. I feel like of like like going into relationships, existing in current relationships with the open-handedness.
Yeah.
Of like not the expectation that it will crash and burn, but that like it's good now, and it's not permanent. It may not be permanent. Obviously we all die, so it's not permanent.
Sure.
But
yes, I'll enjoy it as long as I can.
Yeah, I'll enjoy it as long as I can. Exactly that.
And I think like, because I was about like different values, not individual values like what we've been talking about, but like cultural values. You know, I was just learning about monochromatic cultures versus polychromatic cultures, and how Western white culture is very monochromatic in terms of you show up at this time. It's very linear. Whereas polychromatic cultures, that's where you get like Black people time.
Mm-hmm.
But like you show up when you show up.
Yeah.
And I've been doing research about this, and like, what is the belief that each culture has that begets this value, that each culture has that begets this value of like, or this perception of time. And like, there are cultures for whom they're not monogamous. It's not like you're married to this person and you go and you build a house with them and you have your family.
Till death do you part.
Exactly. There's cultures where it's like people sleep with each other, people get pregnant, raises the children together.
Yeah.
It's less about like, that's my parent. It's more like, this is my family. Like, my community is my family.
Yeah, the collective.
And so what that signifies to me is the degree to which, like, our beliefs around family unit, about relationship to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a nurture rather than a nature thing.
Yeah. And of course, the nature part is the desire for connection.
Yeah.
And of course, there is still grief. That's part of the nature of somebody moves away, somebody dies, you grow apart from somebody moves away, somebody dies, you grow apart from someone, you miss them. Of course you do. But like, how we view relationships are so like closed-fisted.
The scarcity.
Yes. And even just the invention of the nuclear family, like post World War II, as like, this is the unit of society, which is why we get all of these focus on the family sort of organizations. It's eugenics. It's all trying to like...
It's eugenics and capitalism.
Yes, exactly. If you take those things away, like, how are we in relationship? These are the things. Wrap up this little segment of the process of acceptance around relationship ending and practicing non-judgment around one's self and the other person. Do you have any kind of like concluding remarks you would like to make?
Well, especially thinking about, because you and I have talked a lot intent of having them change that behavior.
Yes.
And it never works. Like, yeah, that is never successful. So if the goal is to have them change the behavior, let's try something else. That being said, it's also strange to have all these judgments about someone that you are not in communication with. Like, you can apologize and recognize the ways in which their behavior was hurtful, but it's never going to happen. So it's interesting to have these judgments kind of in a vacuum in a way.
Like, it's kind of like being all dressed up with nowhere to go. There's like,
yes,
it's almost impotent. It doesn't have a target.
Yes, impotent's a good word. It does feel like, yeah, in a way.
Like, it's kind of like being all dressed up with nowhere to go. There's like,
yes,
it's almost impotent. It doesn't have a target.
Yes, impotent's a good word. It does feel like, yeah, just like I'm powerless. My hands are tied. So yeah, trying to recognize that, like, to validate that these judgments are coming from somewhere. I came by them honestly, while also trying to redirect, and this becomes easier over time, redirect that into behaviors that will actually, or like thoughts and feelings that will actually
serve you.
Serve me. Thank you.
Did you come up with that idiom yourself?
I think so.
Try to run a marathon in a rocking chair. That's amazing.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
It's so you as an idiom because of like the things that you enjoy. Because like my favorite version of that is from Apollo 13, where he says it's like trying to drive a toaster through a car wash, which feels very much like me.
I like that. Yep. So. We need our own personal brand of
exactly
that sentiment. Yeah, that's perfect. Brand of
exactly
that sentiment. Yeah, that's perfect.
Splendid. Okay. Alrighty, and now we're back in the future again. I did want to point out some of the different levels of validation. Level 2, which is reflecting back. I did most of that in the previous episode. This episode, I was focusing mostly on interpreting, which is the quote-unquote read minds level 3, where I mentioned Anne's values. From listening to her talk, like, I know that one of her values is repairing relationships. So it makes sense that she would be so frustrated by friends who do not share that value, or who don't demonstrate that they share that value, and instead just leap to cutting her off. Another level that I used was level 4, which is understand to cutting her off. Another level that I used was level 4, which is understand. Like I mentioned, Anne's historical context, that she has had other really painful endings of friendships in the past. So she's already kind of raw around that. And it makes sense that having the trust from previous friendships would make this one also really, really painful. Another level was level 5, acknowledge the valid. And one place where I use this was I said that it sucks to lose a friend. Like, it really fucking sucks. I don't care who you are. I think it sucks for everybody. PTSD. And I checked in with Anne to see, hey, does this feel weird to you that I'm comparing these two things? Because I know that for some folks, that's like a big no-no. But I was trying to tie my experience of like having trust issues of like my safety out in the world to Anne's friendship loss and chipping away her experience of trust that she's safe in a friendship. So those are just a couple like specific instances. But I think overall, both of us were practicing quite a bit of validation, me validating her and her validating herself in this conversation. So that's that. And thank you, dear listener, for sticking around and listening to part 2, a continuation from last week. I will keep on chipping away at my backlog, which is extensive, of past episodes, and get them out to you. Okay, well, that's the end of that, and I'm just going to do... This has been Let's Therapize That Shit, with your host, me, Joy Gerhard. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends about it. I'll see you next time. Intro and outro music is Swan Lake Opus 20 by Tchaikovsky, performed by the London Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Anatoly Fistulari, and released on LP by Richmond High Fidelity London Records in 1952.